Let me ask you something, and I want you to sit with it for a moment. How much of your life have you spent managing other people's emotions while abandoning your own? Seriously, pause. How many times have you swallowed your truth just to avoid upsetting someone else? How many times have you said yes when every cell in your body was screaming no just to keep the peace? We're taught that being a good person means being agreeable, being kind, being available. But no one teaches you the difference between being kind and being a cushion for someone else's emotional immaturity. That's not kindness. That's self-sacrifice. That's codependency disguised as compassion. And I want you to hear me clearly today. You are not responsible for how other people feel. Not their sadness, not their disappointment, not their anger, not their reactions to your boundaries. That's their emotional curriculum, not yours. I used to live like a hostage to other people's feelings. Every message I sent was triple checked. Every no was followed by an essay of explanation. Every boundary I set came with a backdoor apology because I thought I had to protect everyone from discomfort, even if it meant destroying myself. But here's what I learned the hard way. You can say something with love and people will still be offended. You can explain yourself with total clarity and someone will still misinterpret your intent. You can show up with your heart wide open and they might still walk away. And none of that is your fault. Their emotional weather is not your sky to clear. When you start internalizing this truth, something powerful begins to happen. You stop micromanaging every interaction. You stop contorting yourself to fit their moods. You stop walking on emotional eggshells. You finally stop holding your breath in relationships. And you start breathing again. Because here's the truth, most people won't say out loud, some people don't want peace. They want control. Some people use guilt as a leash. They don't want you to have boundaries. They want you to stay bendable. And the moment you stop being emotionally available on demand, they'll call you cold, selfish, distant. But listen closely, being unavailable to emotional manipulation is not cruelty. It's clarity. Now, I know what you might be thinking. But Jay, what about my parents, my partner, my best friend? If I don't take care of their feelings, who will? Let me flip that for you. If you're the only one regulating their emotions, you're not helping them grow. You're enabling their emotional dependency. Love doesn't mean carrying someone else's emotional backpack every day. Love means helping them pack their own. Let me say that again because someone needs to hear it. Love means helping them pack their own. Because if they always need you to feel okay, what happens when you're not around? What happens when you need support? What happens when you're depleted? We've been trained to be emotional paramedics in every relationship, rushing in, fixing, rescuing. But healing doesn't happen when you rob someone of their responsibility. Healing happens when you walk with them, not for them. Think about it like this. You don't grow stronger by watching someone else lift your weights. You get stronger by doing the reps yourself. Emotional strength is built the same way through discomfort, through honesty, through learning how to process and release. If someone never learns how to sit with their disappointment or frustration, they'll never evolve. And if you keep cushioning their falls, they'll never learn how to land. Yes, be compassionate. Yes, be present. But don't let your empathy become a leash around your throat. I want to give you a phrase that changed my life. I can care deeply without carrying completely. You can care. You can show up. You can listen. But you don't have to absorb their pain as your own. You don't have to change your truth because it upsets them. You don't have to minimize your joy because they feel insecure. You don't have to shrink your light so they feel comfortable in the dark. That is not love. That is emotional imprisonment. There's something else I want you to consider. When you spend your life managing everyone else's feelings, you abandon the most important relationship. You have the one with yourself. Your intuition becomes muffled. Your peace becomes fractured. Your identity becomes a patchwork of other people's preferences. And before you know it, you're exhausted. Not because life is too much, but because you're carrying what was never yours to hold. So let me release you today from guilt that never belonged to you, from emotional responsibilities that were never yours to begin with. Let me remind you, you are not selfish for setting boundaries. You are not mean for speaking your truth. You are not cold for protecting your energy. You are wise. You are grounded. You are finally waking up to your power. So here's what I want you to ask yourself today. Whose emotions have I been carrying that aren't mine to hold? Whose mood swings, whose projections, whose disappointment have I accepted as my responsibility? And what could I create? What could I become if I finally let that go? If this question stirred something in you, I want to invite you into this journey. Comment below what's one emotional weight you're ready to drop. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so we can grow through this together. I'm so grateful you're here. This isn't just a video, it's a turning point. Let's keep rising together. Let me ask you something honest. How many versions of you exist in the minds of others that you never chose? The version that your colleague thinks you are because of a single comment. The version your cousin thinks you are because of something they heard, not something you said. The version your ex still carries, twisted through the lens of their pain. And all of it is not who you truly are. It's just how they see you through their lens, their trauma, their filters. And here's the truth, no one wants to admit. You could spend your entire life being the most honest, loving, thoughtful person, and someone will still misunderstand you. You could articulate your soul with clarity and compassion, and they'll still judge your tone. You could show up with love, and they'll question your motives. You could choose silence, and they'll label it arrogance. You could speak your truth, and they'll call it an attack. So let me offer you this freedom today. You are not responsible for how people choose to perceive you. I had to learn this the hard way. In my early 20s, I was obsessed with being understood. I believed that if I just explained myself the right way, I could avoid being misjudged. If I just chose the right tone, the right words, the right timing, they would finally see me. But no matter how carefully I packaged my truth, someone always twisted it. And I realized I was living my life not as myself, but as a manager of other people's projections. Think about that. You start dressing a certain way so you're not too much. You water down your opinions so you don't sound arrogant. You laugh at jokes that make you uncomfortable so you don't seem uptight. That's not authenticity. That's performance. And the stage never closes. There's a psychological phenomenon called the spotlight effect. It's the belief that everyone is watching you, analyzing your every move, every flaw, every failure. But the truth is most people are too consumed with their own worries to dissect yours. Most people aren't judging you, they're projecting onto you. They're not seeing you, they're seeing their unhealed parent. They're seeing the friend who betrayed them. They're seeing the version of themselves they don't want to face. You're just the mirror. Their perception is not your identity. Let me give you a real world example. Imagine you walk into a room wearing bright red shoes. One person thinks, wow, they're bold. I love their confidence. Another person thinks, they're trying too hard. That's attention seeking. A third person says nothing, but inside they're admiring you because they never had the courage to wear what they love. Same shoes, different stories. None of them have anything to do with you because perception lives in the mind of the observer, not the soul of the observed. Now, here's what happens when you try to control how others see you. You start shape-shifting. You bend your personality, twist your language, adjust your passion. You become a diluted version of yourself, more palatable, more digestible, more likable. But with every layer you shed for approval, you lose connection to your truth. And eventually, you forget who you were before the performance began. That's the danger. The more you chase perception, the more you abandon presence. I want to give you a challenge, one that helped me reclaim my sense of self. Stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. If someone wants to judge you, they don't need evidence, they'll create it. If someone wants to dislike you, they'll twist anything into justification. You can't argue someone out of a belief they're emotionally invested in. You can only live in a way that contradicts their narrative and let your life speak. I remember when I became a monk, so many people thought I was throwing my future away. To them, I was confused, I was lost, I was running from responsibility. But to me, it was the most responsible choice I had ever made to sit with myself, to listen, to unlearn, to heal. And when I came back, I realized that many of those people hadn't changed their opinions even after all I had experienced. That's when I understood you can evolve completely and some people will still see the old you. And that's okay, because your evolution is not for their applause. It's for your alignment. One of the biggest lies we're told is that your reputation is everything. But let me tell you the truth. Your reputation is fragile. Your integrity is unshakable. Reputation lives in gossip. Integrity lives in silence. Reputation changes with trends. Integrity deepens with time. Reputation can be stolen. Integrity can only be surrendered. So stop chasing the image. Start cultivating the inner. Be more concerned with who you are than with what they see. Here's something powerful to remember. You will always be too much for someone. Too quiet, too loud, too ambitious, too emotional, too distant, too intense. And that's okay because you're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to be aligned with yourself. Some people won't understand your silence. Some people won't understand your boundaries. Some people won't understand your vision. That's not your problem to solve. It's their limitation to sit with. Your job is to stay honest, to stay kind, to stay rooted, and to keep walking. I want you to reflect on this. Who are you performing for? Whose approval are you chasing that's costing you your peace? What would happen if you let go of the need to be seen correctly and started living authentically, not filtered, not diluted, not edited, just you? Because the people who are meant to walk with you, they won't need subtitles to understand your soul. They'll feel it, and those who don't, let them go. They're not rejecting you. They're rejecting the version of themselves they're not ready to meet, and that's not your burden to carry. Let me ask you a question that makes most rescuers uncomfortable. Why do you rush to fix other people's lives so quickly as if your worth depends on their recovery? Think about the friend who calls at midnight expecting a plan, the partner who wants you to remove the sting of rejection, the family member who assumes you hold the archive of answers. If you're honest, you've been that person. You confuse care with control. You become a problem taker, lugging other people's burdens as if they were your own suitcase. Here's the brutal truth. Fixing someone else's problem often robs them of the only thing they need, the chance to become strong. When you do their work, you steal their growth. You remove the friction that would force them to adapt, learn, and evolve. You become the person they depend on. Dependency is emotional atrophy. Muscles waste when they aren't used. Resilience dulls when it isn't practiced. I remember sending endless resources, articles, podcasts, frameworks, convinced information alone would transform them. I wanted to shorten their struggle, but most of the time they felt overwhelmed. They had the map, they needed the first step, they needed initiation, not the whole staircase. This is not to say don't help. Help is sacred. Presence is holy. But help is not solving. Presence is not substitution. Hand someone a flashlight, teach them to use it, stand beside them while they walk. The lesson is not the answer. The lesson is the doing. People don't heal from being rescued. They heal from being trusted to carry their pain with dignity. They don't learn boundaries from someone who removes all obstacles. They learn by meeting obstacles and navigating them. If you always clear the path, you never teach navigation. Do you shift? So how do you shift from fixer to facilitator? First, examine your motive. Are you fixing because you care or because being needed defines you? Are you avoiding discomfort by giving answers? The desire to be needed can become an addiction. It keeps you in roles that hide your unmet needs. Second, limit your capacity. Say, I'm here. I can listen for 20 minutes and help you find one step. I can't carry this for you. This language reorients the dynamic. Care with limits. It teaches responsibility and makes the relationship sustainable. Third, ask empowering questions instead of offering directives. Try, what small step feels possible today? If you imagined a version of you who solved this, what would they do? Questions shift ownership. They activate agency and build confidence through action. Fourth model process, not product. Tell your messy stories of failure and recovery. Share the small daily steps that led to change. People learn more from your authentic struggle than your polished solutions. Process gives permission for imperfection and a roadmap without shortcuts. Fifth, distinguish emergency from evolution. If someone's life is at risk, intervene, be a lifeline. But most emotional conversations are about slow growth. Recognize which you're in. Be a rescuer for danger. Be a companion for rebuilding. Paradoxically, when you stop fixing everyone, you help better. Your energy isn't scattered across 1,000 problems. You bring focused presence to places where you genuinely make a difference. You become a lighthouse, not a life raft, for every drifting boat. Use this practical script when someone expects you to solve their problem. I'm here for you. I can listen for 20 minutes and help you choose one small step. I can't solve this for you, but I will support you while you take it. Practice it. It's humane and courageous. Expect resistance. People will beg and guilt you. You always know what to say. If you don't help, I don't know what I'll do. Stay steady. Boundaries will shake people. Growth never arrives without tension. Holding your boundary is not abandonment. It is an invitation to ownership. Celebrate small wins without taking credit. When someone acts, let them own the result. Don't rush to explain how your advice led to their victory. Their triumph builds muscle memory. Your role is to encourage, not to architect their success, and take care of your repair. Those who always fix can forget to heal. They forget to refill. You must be whole enough to help, not empty. Practice replenishment. Say no to things that drain you and yes to things that refill you. This is radical responsibility. Not responsibility for others' lives, but responsibility for how you show up. It's the courage to love without enabling, the discipline to be present without being a crutch, the wisdom to know when to hold a hand and when to teach it to write. Ask yourself today, who have I been rescuing that needs to practice rescue for themselves? Who am I doing the reps for? What strength am I stealing from another by solving their problems? When you move from fixer to facilitator, your relationships deepen, your presence becomes sustainable, and others grow into their strength. That's the greatest generosity. Not arranging someone's life for them, but helping them arrange it for themselves. Consider the long term. When you always solve someone's problems, you train them to outsource decision-making. You erode their confidence slowly, and the relationship becomes a ledger of favors rather than a partnership of growth. But when you hold space instead, you build autonomy. You create a dynamic where courage is practiced, not purchased. Imagine relationships where both people are capable, where challenges are met with shared curiosity, not heroics. That future begins now. People can be stronger than you think, and so can you. When you choose to help rather than rescue, to teach rather than do, you give the deepest gift, freedom, through competence. You are not responsible for fixing other people's problems. You are responsible for showing up with love, clarity, and boundaries that protect both your peace and their ability to grow. Let me hit you with something uncomfortable. Every time you try to meet someone else's expectations, you risk betraying your own soul. And the tragedy is, you often don't even realize it's happening. You accept a job because your parents expect it. You say yes to marriage because your friends are already engaged. You follow a path that looks good on the outside and feels hollow on the inside. But you keep going. You keep chasing that applause, that validation, that nod of approval, until one day you wake up exhausted, resentful, confused, and ask yourself, whose life am I even living? Let's be clear. Expectations aren't evil. They're part of how we navigate relationships, family, and community. But when expectations become obligations that suffocate your authenticity, they're no longer a guide, they're a cage. You weren't born to play a role in someone else's script. You were born to write your own. Now, I want you to hear this deeply. Even if you meet all their expectations, someone will still be disappointed. You get the degree they wanted, but it's not from the right school. You marry the person they approve of, but not at the right time. You succeed and they still find something wrong. You see, expectations are moving, targets always shifting based on people's moods, opinions, fears, and insecurities. You could sacrifice everything and still fall short. Because it was never about you, it was about their unhealed narratives. I'll never forget when I told my parents I wanted to become a monk. They didn't take it lightly. And I don't blame them. They had dreams. They had visions of me in a suit, not in robes. Of me in a boardroom, not meditating on a mountain. But what they didn't realize is that I wasn't rejecting them. I was choosing me for the first time. And that one decision changed my entire life. Because when you stop chasing what they want, you finally have space to hear what you want. So many of us are living under inherited pressure. We're chasing careers, relationships, timelines, not because they align with our truth, but because we feel guilty if we don't. You become the parent because they expected grandchildren. You buy the house because everyone says it's the next step. You stay in the relationship because they think it looks perfect on paper. But let me tell you something real. Looking perfect and feeling aligned are not the same thing. You can have the picture perfect life and still feel like you're dying inside. Because success without authenticity is failure in disguise. And here's what makes it harder. No one applauds you when you disappoint their expectations, even if it saves your soul. You won't get a standing ovation for choosing a slower life. You won't get a trophy for saying no to the dream job. You won't trend for walking away from the thing everyone else wanted for you. But what you will get is freedom. What you will get is peace. What you will get is you. There's a beautiful story I want to share. A man once brought a beautiful vase to a potter. The potter looked at it and said, "This is a masterpiece." But the man said, "No, I didn't make this. My grandfather did. I want you to make me the exact same one." The potter said, "I could try, but wouldn't you rather have one that reflects your hands, your story?" The man thought for a moment and replied, "But everyone in my family expects me to carry his legacy." The potter looked at him and said, "Legacy isn't repeating what someone else did. It's honoring them by becoming who you were born to be." That's what I want you to hear. You don't honor others by erasing yourself. You don't show love by living a lie. And here's the hardest part for people pleasers to accept. And I say this as a recovering one myself. You can love people deeply and still choose a path they don't understand. You can honor your parents and still say no to their plan. You can be a loyal friend and still evolve beyond their expectations. You can care and still walk your truth. Because at the end of the day, you will be the one living with the consequences of the choices you made trying to please others. They don't wake up with your regrets. They don't sit with your anxiety. They don't carry your emptiness. You do. So here's what I want you to ask yourself right now. Whose voice is guiding your decisions? Whose standards are shaping your life? Whose dreams are you living out? And are they even yours? Because until you face this, you'll be stuck in a cycle of silent resentment, smiling on the outside, suffocating on the inside. And I want better for you. Not just comfort, not just approval. I want clarity. I want you to feel the joy of living in alignment. Let's do something together. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and picture a life that is truly, fully, unmistakably yours. No expectations, no pressure, no pretending. Just you, raw, honest, and free. What does that life look like? That's your compass. That's your truth. And yes, stepping into it may disappoint some people. It may confuse them. It may even cost you certain relationships. But the one relationship it will heal is the one with yourself. And that's the most important one you'll ever have. You are not responsible for fulfilling other people's unspoken dreams. You are not here to tick off someone else's checklist. You are not a mirror for their insecurities. You are a soul on a sacred journey, and that path must be your own. So stop asking for permission to live your life. Start giving yourself the approval you've been waiting for. And watch what happens when you finally step into who you were meant to be, not who they needed you to be. Let me begin with a painful truth. Sometimes the way people treat you has absolutely nothing to do with you. And yet, how often do we internalize it? Someone raises their voice, you wonder what you did wrong. Someone ignores your message, you question your worth. Someone leaves without an explanation, you blame yourself for not being enough. We carry other people's behavior like a scarlet letter on our chest, branding ourselves with shame that was never ours to begin with. But today, I want you to release this burden. You are not responsible for how others choose to treat you. I need you to understand this on a soul deep level. People don't treat you based on your value. They treat you based on their emotional maturity. You could show up with kindness, patience, and loyalty and still get met with coldness, indifference, or even cruelty. Not because you're broken, not because you deserve it, but because they don't know how to honor what's healthy. They're still stuck in patterns shaped by pain. You are not their pattern to fix. You are not their past to relive. You are not their emotional punching bag. Let me share a story. A woman once came up to me after an event and said, "Jay, I give everything to people. I support them, love them, forgive them, and they still treat me like I don't matter. What am I doing wrong?" I looked at her and said gently, "You're assuming their treatment of you is a reflection of your value, but it's actually a reflection of how they treat themselves." Read that again. The way people treat you reveals how they relate to themselves, not how worthy you are. Someone who is bitter with themselves can't show you sweetness. Someone who's ashamed of their own truth will try to shame yours. Someone who hasn't learned self-respect cannot offer it to you. Now, this doesn't mean you don't take accountability. If you've hurt someone, own it. If you've made a mistake, repair it. But stop making yourself responsible for their projections, their bad day, or their unresolved trauma. You cannot be the emotional janitor of someone else's unprocessed pain. You're not here to shrink so others can feel big. You're not here to tolerate mistreatment just to prove your understanding. You're not here to excuse repeated disrespect in the name of empathy. Let me be blunt. Buying understanding doesn't mean being a doormat. Compassion should never cost you your dignity. Some of the kindest people I've met are also the most hurt. Why? Because they think their goodness will change someone else's behavior. They believe if they just love harder, tolerate longer, or stay quieter, the other person will wake up. But love is not a magic eraser for someone else's immaturity. Your kindness won't teach someone how to be kind. Your softness won't always soften them. Sometimes it just makes you more convenient to mistreat. And you are not here to be convenient. Let me say this clearly. You are not responsible for raising adults who refuse to grow. You are not the therapist in your relationship. You are not the emotional regulator for your family. You are not the fixer of broken behavior that was never yours to begin with. And just because someone is having a bad day, a bad year, or even a bad life, does not mean you have to tolerate bad treatment. You can hold space without holding abuse. You can be kind without being walked on. You can be strong and still say no more. I remember when I first started speaking out about boundaries, some people thought I was being cold. "Jay, you're supposed to be spiritual. Shouldn't you just accept everyone?" And I said, spirituality isn't about letting everyone into your life. It's about choosing who aligns with your peace. Protecting your peace is not ego, it's wisdom. Drawing a line isn't rejection, it's self-respect. And here's the paradox. The more you value yourself, the more you'll trigger those who don't value themselves. The stronger your boundary becomes, the louder their discomfort will get. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you're selfish. They'll say you've abandoned them. But what you've really abandoned is your role as the emotional sponge. So how do you know when someone's treatment of you isn't yours to carry? Ask yourself, do I feel anxious when their name shows up on my phone? Do I second guess my worth after spending time with them? Do I feel like I'm constantly walking on eggshells? Do I feel like I'm giving way more than I receive? If the answer is yes to more than one, you're probably carrying responsibility for behavior you didn't create, and it's time to put it down. I want to offer you this simple phrase. Use it when you feel yourself absorbing someone else's energy. I can witness their pain without making it my punishment. You can show up with love. You can be present with empathy, but you don't have to sacrifice your well-being to prove your loyalty. Love built on self-sacrifice eventually turns into resentment. And resentment isn't love, it's self-abandonment with a fake smile. Here's the truth. You teach people how to treat you not through long speeches, but through what you tolerate, what you allow, what you walk away from. The moment you realize you don't have to accept everything handed to you, you start designing the life and relationships you deserve, not based on control, not based on guilt, but based on mutual respect, emotional maturity, and truth. So if you've been blaming yourself for the way they treated you, if you've been asking, what could I have done differently? What's wrong with me? Why don't they appreciate me? Let me say this. It wasn't about you. It never was. It was about their wounds, their fears, their unreadiness, and you don't have to carry that anymore. You are not responsible for their behavior. You are responsible for how long you stay. And today, you can choose better. You can choose peace over pleasing, clarity over chaos, self-worth over self-sacrifice. Let that be your new baseline. Let that be your boundary. And let this be the chapter where you stop carrying the weight of mistreatment and start walking lighter, freer, and unapologetically whole.